got it.
Hi, my Long Island pickleball friends. It's Frank Lillo from Long Island Pickleball Pros. Coach Frank, as you know, I do leagues, clinics, I teach, I sell paddles, and I am thrilled right now to introduce our new guest here for the Pickleball podcast. It's a woman who's making a big impact. She's part of the National Women's Pickleball Foundation. It's a foundation which helps support women. Her name is Catherine Barton, and I'm going to have Catherine introduce herself. Go ahead, Catherine, please.
Frank, thanks so much for having me on. I actually have to admit, I've become a fan. So it's a great podcast. You just keep on doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I wanted to thank you for giving the National Women's Pickleball Foundation a little bit of a platform today. We we started the National Women's Pickleball Foundation back in 23 and formalized it as a 501c3, a public charity in early 2024. And the foundation is really dedicated to empowering individuals through the sport of pickleball. So what does that mean to empower individuals? By focusing on community building, education or instruction, and physical fitness, we are providing resources, programs, and events that uplift communities and enrich the sport itself. I can give you a couple of examples. The foundation has donated and installed temporary pickleball courts at some local aftercare facilities where kids have been, it's exciting, right?
Yeah,
The kids have been
perfect.
able to go outside, and as opposed to just running wildly around some concrete pad with some old basketball hoops on it, they're now engaged in the game, playing, developing their skills, having fun, interacting. So that's exciting. We were blessed to be able to provide paddles for the Special Olympics athletes, as well as some other smaller local charities where all people needed was a paddle, and the foundation was able to provide that. And then on a larger picture, we are trying to take the words pickleball is accessible to everyone and put some real meat and teeth behind that. So what does that mean? There are so many of our nonprofit partners that we work with: Special Olympics, Alzheimer's, Boys and Girls Club, Love Serving Autism, where their constituents can benefit from being out on the pickleball court. And depending on their physical skill abilities, it may be organized games and competitive play, or it may just be the actual freedom and joy of being handed a pickleball and a paddle and being able to make contact between the two. I mean, bouncing a ball off your paddle up and down and spelling your name is super easy when you have a name like Frank, but imagine how skilled I have to be with a long name like Catherine, right?
That's right.
So it's really, at the end of the day, all the fun and joy of pickleball. If we can bring this to some of these underserved populations and introduce it and make a difference and put a smile on people's faces, it's extraordinarily rewarding.
And so let me just mention to the our Long Island pickleball friends how you and I got to meet each other. I reached out to you because I support a charity called PowerPlayNYC.org for underprivileged girls in the five boroughs to teach them how to play or have access to like tennis and golf and archery and pickleball and all these other sports that the underprivileged girls will never have access to. And I reached out to you and you were kind enough to get back to me. And as part of that, we met because you were doing that foundation for the Baldwin family and that charity event in
Carol
Center.
M. Baldwin Cancer Research Foundation,
Yes,
that's
at the
correct.
Pickler. So that's how you and I got to meet each other and spoke about all the great things we could maybe help work together. So
Frank, I'm so glad you mentioned your initiative, because what I didn't have a chance to tell you earlier when we were doing a little prep, because I always believe that a surprise is a surprise, is that
right.
the foundation is honored to be able to donate 50 brand new paddles
Oh,
to your group. So the next time I see you up in New York City, and that may very well be in Times Square for our pop-up pickleball court, we will be presenting you with 50 brand new paddles.
That's fantastic. I'm so thrilled that you were able to support them because they're doing great work. As you know, underprivileged girls don't have access to these things. One question for you, Catherine. How did you start the National Pickleball Foundation?
You
How
know,
did that get
that
started?
it it's a great question, and my co-founder Alita Friedman and I ask each other that question all the time. What were we thinking? So, back in 2018, I relocated down to Florida with my husband. His job transferred him down here, and very quickly was introduced to the sport of pickleball, and also very quickly discovered that women who were being introduced to the sport were being slightly intimidated by more aggressive males playing on the courts. And
Sure.
I'm sure you can relate to that, Frank.
Yes.
So what I saw was that women were really interested in playing with other women. And as the sport evolved and more women got involved, and remember now we're talking back in 2018 where it really was your grandmother's favorite sport, right? It
Hmm.
was the highest growth in pickleball at that point was in the 55 plus demographic. And I know that you and I are going to talk a little bit later how that's changing.
Right.
But so women wanted to play with other women. And then as people's games developed and people's skills developed, and, Frank, we talked about this at length, but you can have fun playing pickleball on the very first day you pick up a paddle. And you
Absolutely.
can take your pickleball game as far as you want to take it. So if you want to become a competing pro, which I am a competing pro in my age group, I do that. I take lessons, I go to clinics, I drill incessantly with anyone who will humor me enough to do it. But if you just want to go out and play pickleball and have a good time, that's the sport for you. So go out with your friends, have a bunch of laughs, make fun of yourself when you drop the ball into the net or wail it out. It doesn't really matter. What are you doing? You are on a court with your friends. You're socializing, you're elevating your heart rate, you're doing all those things that health experts are telling women to do right now, which is move your body, socialize with your peers, and exercise your mind by learning something new.
So they say that playing pickleball can add, or any tennis or racket sport adds 10 years to your life, which I absolutely believe because it engages. And people who have Parkinson's are being prescribed pickleball because it engages the mind, it engages the body, it engages the hand, the eye coordination, moving the feet. So it's really important for the physical aspects of it. But the
A
mental
hundred
aspects, Catherine,
percent.
is extremely important. How women don't have some of the access to sports like they normally would, especially the elderly, what's going to get them away from the house? What's going to get them to socialize with other people,
Out of the
interact with other
recliner and
people?
onto the courts, right?
Exactly.
So, this is um, why we talk about a National Women's Pickleball League, because we're now talking about providing opportunities for women at all skill levels to be able to get out and play. So there's nothing more rewarding than going out to play a game of pickleball and finding that group that's playing just at your level, right?
Right.
We
Perfect.
we we we're now being motivated to play the best we can. We are not being overwhelmed by a far superior player, and we're also not necessarily coddling or playing down to a lesser skilled player. Wherever we stand in that continuum, the purpose of the National Women's Pickleball League is to bring women together in groups. We have pickleball certified pros who work with us, including yourself.
Sure.
Um, and we are putting groups and teams together all over the country. I will tell you that down here in the state of Florida, we have over 2,500 women participating in what started out as the Power Pickleball League, which was a women's pickleball league. And that has morphed and developed into the National Women's Pickleball League. So this summer, we're opening our first league franchise out at the Pickler in Center Reach. And Frank,
Perfect.
I certainly hope that the second one is going to be somewhere in Rockville Center
Yes.
and you're going to be
I
running
will
it.
do everything I can. Yes. I'll do everything I can to get that going. But that's good. That's great. So you saw this growth go from how many people to how many people? I mean, that's amazing. You must be
So
thrilled to death, but it's also very satisfying knowing that you're making that many people happy and playing, right?
it is super rewarding. So what started off as a 55 plus women's league in 2018, I think we started with 126 players. We had 6 teams. We now have over 115 teams in Florida. We, as I mentioned, are starting to expand not only out in Long Island, but we're opening up the Miami market and the Gulf Coast market in Florida, as well as locations in Chicago and Michigan. So it's starting to happen perhaps a little bit more quickly than we anticipated, but what it reinforces for me is that women really are looking for a vehicle where they can play competitively. You know, playing competitively doesn't mean that you're playing for money, you're playing just to win, you're playing for the guts and the glory. It also means that you are on a court with your peers and you are in that social moment where everything's going your way. Your heart rate's up, you're moving your limbs, you're socializing with your friends, you're remembering the score. I mean, that's a feat of mental acuity if I ever heard of one,
For sure.
correct?
Yep.
So all these wonderful things are happening, and they're happening on the pickleball court. And then they're happening before the pickleball game starts when we're all trying to stretch and be good doobies. And those who do not stretch perhaps are learning from people who stretch. And then after pickleball is over, when people decide, hey, let's go grab a beer together, or let's have a barbecue, or let's, continue this great camaraderie into a game of canasta or mahjong. I mean, what we're seeing is the development of a community of women based on an athletic endeavor, which I think is extraordinary and quite unique.
I will say that when I teach people how to play pickleball here in Rockville Center, they always ask me, so Frank, what's next? I go, look, I have beginner leagues. I have leagues that I can put you in. And the first question they always ask me, and someone asked me that today, and they go, do you think I'm qualified to play in that league? I go, I wouldn't be asking you if you weren't qualified. It's a beginner league. That's for beginners. It's people to learn together, to really bond together about learning a sport that we all like. No one's going to judge you on how great you play or how
Exactly.
less you
It's
play.
the no judgment zone, right?
Yep, they're judging you on, do you show up? Do you want to play? Do you have a smile on your face?
You
Look,
have a
do you
good
remember the
attitude,
score? Right? Go
100%.
ahead. I'm sorry.
And no, no, no. And this is the wonderful piece of pickleball, right? That's so simple that also enables us to bring it to some of these underrepresented populations we're talking about. For example, a couple of Saturdays ago, a whole group of volunteers, we all got on the court with a wonderful group called Love Serving Autism. And Love Serving Autism brought 20 to 30-year-old autistic adults to the courts. And they were competent racket sport players. They came from tennis. They were anxious to learn pickleball and picked it up extremely quickly. And our volunteers, who I think kind of came on the court thinking, oh, we're going to teach these folks pickleball, actually, it got competitive real quickly. It got fun real quickly. And at the end of the day, there were smiles, there were pictures, there were people friending each other. And this is the kind of moment that you just can't replicate, right? It's so gratifying. Every single volunteer had a wonderful day. I got beautiful, beautiful thank you notes from the Love Serving Autism athletes. And it's the kind of activity that the foundation likes to facilitate and have happen over and over and over again. A
So
couple
that's a
weeks.
big part of pickleball, and that's the community itself on how people get engaged, how people get involved, and how this becomes bigger than just playing a sport, like you mentioned. It's the social aspect, it's the fact that you're making new friends, you're meeting new people, you're out there socializing, and you're actually looking forward to the next game, the next meeting, the next people. And that's the one thing that you're bringing up about helping people who are not really being served in a way that you could serve them playing pickleball. I mean, it's one thing you can develop, you can donate your time, great, you can donate your money, but when you donate a sport to a charity and say, look, let's get the people together and let's play with them,
The
that
gift that
becomes
keeps
even
on
a
giving.
bigger, becomes bigger.
100%. And I wanted to go back to something else that you mentioned before, because we were talking about health, right? We were talking about health. And I know that not only from a woman's perspective, which is, where we come from when we talk about the National Women's Pickleball League, but in any of these health-based nonprofits and charitable organizations that we get involved with, there is such an emphasis on good, healthy habits. And when you think about pickleball and all the boxes it checks off, right? I go back to 10 healthy habits that the Alzheimer's Association publishes. And pickleball checks the box in so many of these levels, right? Elevating the heart rate, introducing repetitive motion. So you're serving to strengthen neural pathways that might be deteriorating. So these are just little things that when I talk about it with a medical person or somebody who's interested in the direct health implications of pickleball, we're talking about all of these elements to stimulate brain function. But when I'm talking about elevating your heart rate and introducing repetitive motion, what am I really talking about, Frank? I'm talking about pickleball.
Yeah. And that's all we want to talk about is pickleball. It's a point where
How long do you have, Frank? I could talk about pickleball all day.
it's funny because when my son was getting married and I had to give the groom's father's speech, and I tell this all the time, my wife said, "Do not talk about pickleball." And when it was my turn to give the speech, I said, "Look, I was told not to talk about pickleball. So if you want to talk to me about pickleball, take me to the side." Then I went into my speech. I just couldn't help myself. And I say that all the time. Yeah. But we're always, so you're in the same situation I'm in. The way I have been involved in pickleball here in Rockville Center, here on Long Island.
And
It really does touch
congratulations, by the
people.
way, for all the people that you have introduced the game to. You are certainly a known entity, and it's very exciting that I know how it feels. There
Yeah.
are a whole bunch of women that I introduce pickleball to, and when I see them on the courts, invariably I get, "You taught me how to play pickleball," and there's a big smile on their face, and they're very happy. So I'm sure you experience the same thing.
And usually what the follow-up question is, Catherine, is, are you still playing pickleball? Because that's what I want to know. Are you still playing? Yeah, of course we're still playing. We're doing this, we're doing that. And it always really makes it another part of, your life and being able to do this. I mean, so I'm retired now, and people are saying, so what are you doing now that you're retired? I go, I have a whole new life now
New
playing
life.
pickleball, teaching pickleball. And this is what I do.
And we're talking now generationally about the retired set, the 55 plus set, but I like to go back to the statistics, and the SFIA, the Sports Fitness Institute, just published its 2025 findings about sports in general. And pickleball, in terms of growth and adoption, whereas back in the teens in 2018, 2019, the high growth population in pickleball was 55 plus. It was your grandfather's sport. Well, in the early 20s, as we saw COVID come in and we saw pickleball and other racket sports, but particularly pickleball,
Right.
become a vehicle where people could be together outside, not too close, but they could be together. What we started to see was that the growth trend in pickleball became the 27-year-old to 37-year-olds groups, right? And that's when people who are working were finding opportunities on weekends and after work. Well, the most exciting news for me is that in this recent a report that was just published, the highest growth population is ages 8 to 18. So what does that mean? What that means is that schools have integrated pickleball into their phys ed curriculum. There are now JV teams and varsity teams. Schools teams are traveling and playing against other teams. There are pickleball club teams. We now have the NCPA, which is the National Collegiate Pickleball Association. So the sport is almost growing backwards, right? We now have high growth and high adoption in that age 8 to 18 category. And what comes along with that, and this is my favorite story, is several weeks ago at one of the events, one of the volunteer events, I think it was a Special Olympics event, on a pickleball court was a grandchild, a child, a parent, and a grandparent. 4 generations on one court. What other sport can you say that about?
Sure. And I have a story where I heard a mother or daughter say to the mother, "Hey, mom, pass me the ball." And I'm like, "How great that sounds." I would give
Right,
my arm for me to be able to say that to my mom. She's so blessed to be able to say that. Play something with your
right,
mom. Are you kidding me? And play something that you both enjoy. I always encourage people to bring another person to the court when I'm going to teach them. Bring a friend, bring your husband, bring your sister, bring somebody because you have someone that you could play with, someone that you could always say, "Hey, let's go to the park and let's play together." But that's the great part of this sport. Now, explain to us or give us a little more detail about how the National Women's Pickleball Foundation helps other organizations. You have the website, correct? And on that website, what do you have on that website which will
so
allow them?
thank you for the plug. I'm going to take advantage of this. NWPF.us, National Women's Pickleball Foundation.us, is our home website. And one of the things that I'm so excited and proud to share with you today is that we have launched the National Pickleball Challenge, and that's in partnership with America 250. America 250 is a nonpartisan federal commission that's entire purpose is to celebrate the 250th anniversary of our country, which, as you know, is coming up on July 4th.
Which is
So,
fabulous because you know what? I just want to mention one thing. I didn't really get the 250, what that meant. I'm like, this 250, what does that even mean? And I forget that it's the 250th year of our Constitution.
right.
Fantastic.
And I'm of a certain age, and I remember watching the tall ships sail down the Hudson back in 1976. So,
Yeah,
that's a memory for some of us, right?
that's
Maybe not
cool.
everyone is listening to your podcast, but some of us. So if you are interested in some of the 250th birthday celebrations and you go to america250.org, you will see that throughout the country, in 73 locations, the Pickler, which is an indoor pickleball facility chain, is sponsoring free open play introduction to pickleball sessions on the third Saturday of every month. And that is basically dedicated to the America 250 National Pickleball Challenge. So whether you're a member of a pickler or not, if you go to our website and you sign up for the challenge, you can be included in these free indoor playing opportunities. Now, the challenge lives everywhere, Frank. The challenge lives on every pickleball court anywhere in the United States. So I would encourage you and your players to go to nwpf.us, and the first thing you're going to see is a prompt to get started with the National Pickleball Challenge. Sign up, and then every time you play pickleball, if you log your session, you are contributing to the pickleball activity in your state. Our goal at the National Women's Pickleball Foundation is to get people playing in all 50 states. And we are dedicated to, over time, being able to provide special amenities and certain benefits to the states that have been most active in the National Pickleball Challenge. I think right now, New York and Florida are leading the challenge. Texas is starting to give us a run for the money. But for anyone out there, just go to nwpf.us, hit get started for the pickleball challenge, and you're about to become a part of a national community of pickleball play.
So I know that I actually did sign up. I did sign up. We spoke last. I signed up last week or a week and a half ago. So I'm part of that. Explain
Excellent.
and go over the National Pickleball League though. I want my
Oh,
people to
sure.
understand how the league works and how we can get or how I can get involved in setting up a league like that.
That's terrific. And actually, Frank, you are involved already, right? So the National Women's Pickleball League is piggybacking off of the Women's Power Pickleball League that we started down here in Florida. And we are offering different formats for different level of play. Right now, the Pickler and Center Reach is hosting a fall league, and we are starting with some open play sessions this summer, so that we can start to see levels of play and make sure that women are put
Right.
in a group that makes sense to them in terms
Sure.
of their skill. And we see the same opportunity down for you with your community down in Rockville Center and the neighboring communities. So the goal really is for women to be able to have a competitive experience. As I mentioned before, it's not about being cutthroat. This is not for money. This is
Right.
social competition, right?
And that's perfect because the majority of my people are beginners and advanced beginners, and they're always asking me, "So what's the next thing?" And this is a perfect um, way of getting them involved in playing with people at their level and also playing in leagues. Because what they like about the leagues is I'm going to be in the same place all the time, every week, regardless of how the weather is going to be. I'm going to set it up indoor. It's going to be in the evenings. It'll be a nice evening time for them, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. But they get to
Beautiful.
play with their own people at their own level at one time. And people, as you know, Catherine, always say, "Oh, I always want to play outside. I always want to play outside." But you want one day a week that if you saw the weather we had here Memorial Day
Rain or
weekend,
shine,
oh,
right?
awful weather. Couldn't play pickleball at all. I was happy that I was able to play on Monday indoors with even people that I knew from out east on the North Fork. I got to play with them, and I was like, wow, at least I got to play
Wow.
indoors. So, fortunately for me, I was able to play with people I knew, but I wanted to play indoor, and it's not always about
Sure.
playing outdoors. So
You
this is
know,
really good.
the whole indoor pickleball phenomenon is really booming. I mean, you look at a chain like the Pickler, and they're going to have over 100 locations before the end of the year. You also
Wow.
see groups like Sport Time and Lifetime
Oh,
are incorporating pickleball, and I do think that indoor pickleball has a place, right? I
absolutely,
think that
absolutely.
you're right, especially as the demographic now, the most people playing pickleball are working. So, the best time to play outdoors is when there's light.
Right.
So,
No
indoor
win.
pickleball, no wind. And to your point, if I'm a working person and I've set aside Tuesday for my pickleball and I've made all those arrangements and then a little bit of rain is going to ruin my day, what's the point?
Yep.
So I do see the growth of indoor pickleball really doing nothing but going on an upward trajectory.
So on Long Island, they must have opened up at least six brand new pickleball facilities in the last 6 months. At least six. There could be even more. So there's a lot of opportunities in that avenues for people to play indoor. The good part about playing indoor as well is you have like the optimum conditions. Look, I like playing outside, but playing outside means that you're not playing with the same conditions that you would play with because you're playing on asphalt, you're playing on deco turf, you're playing on
There's
cement,
wind,
you're playing on all
there's
different types of.
glare,
Yeah.
right?
And here's what I tell people though, because you also play indoor and you play on gym floors. When you play tennis, Catherine, how many surfaces do you have to play on in order to become a pro? You got hard courts at the U.S.
Right.
Open, at Billie Jean Tennis Center. You got clay that's being played at Roland Garros and the French. You have the grass at Wimbledon. So you have to know how to play on all different surfaces. But the one
Right.
thing that you want to learn how to play every day on or every week on is a special indoor surface so that you can get play with the optimum conditions. Um, Now, let me just ask you a few things about pickleball in general, and where do you see pickleball going in the next 5 to 10 years? And how do you see it growing?
So, I mean, recreational women's pickleball is already one of the fastest growing communities in sports. And honestly, we're just getting started.
Right.
In the next 5 years, you're going to see more women-only leagues, more beginner-friendly clinics, and you're going to see courts, as you just mentioned, both indoor and also undercover open air courts opening up in places you would never expect. I mean, show me an abandoned basketball pad, and I'm going to show you a future pickleball court, right? So, what makes it so special is that it doesn't matter what your age is or your athletic background. You can pick up a paddle and you can become competitive fairly quickly, right, Frank? I
Oh
mean,
yeah, of
what do you
course,
tell
absolutely.
after 4 or 5 sessions with you, those ladies are ready to go off and play,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So the thing
So I
about
believe
pickleball though
that.
is it's inclusivity, like you mentioned. All you need is a paddle and just go down to a park, and now you're playing pickleball. You don't need three people. You don't need one other person to play singles. You go down to a park and you just play. And when you talk
I
about
would
coverage,
say I would say that 5 years from now, finding a
yes,
women's game near you is going to be as easy as finding a yoga class.
it's already happening though. We got parks now where people play all the time and people get involved. So how do you see the growth in pickleball happening? Where do you see it coming from? Where do you see the biggest growth coming from?
Well, aside from, as we discussed before, this whole influx of 8 to 18-year-olds, right, who are coming in now, I want you to think about this. This is a legacy sport. They're playing at 8, they're playing at 18, they're going to be playing at 80.
Right.
So this entire population, this brand new population of 8 to 18-year-olds is going to carry this sport all the way through their entire lifetime. Not to mention all the people who adopt pickleball at various times in their life when it becomes either attainable or available or just, you know, an opportunity. Retirement, scaling back, your kids growing and becoming less dependent on you for carpooling and support. So all these elements that happen in a people in someone's life are all opportunities for onboarding pickleball.
Sure.
And I only see, Andre Agassi said something, you mentioned it, and I actually was sitting in a room when I heard him say it. But Andre said, Steph and I don't make new friends very
Right.
easily. We have plenty to do, and then we go home and we don't want to talk to anybody. But he and his wife have made friends on the pickleball court that are their friends that they choose to be with, choose to spend time with, choose to go and socialize with. And I don't think that he and Steph are any different than anybody else in the United States. When you come onto the pickleball court, it's like all bets are off. Nobody knows what kind of car you drive. Nobody knows what you did for a living. Nobody knows how much money you made every year. This is about being on that court, being present, getting that ball back, getting your serve in, blocking what could be an ATP shot. I mean, there's so much to be thinking about and obsessed with and consumed with on the court that a lot of the things that can sort of hold us back in life just disappear when you're playing pickleball.
Absolutely. 100%. The one thing I will lament about is there's not enough pickleball clothes like there are tennis clothes. I like to see people dressed in tennis outfits. You don't really see that with pickleball. I'm kind of like when I see people wearing tennis outfits, I mean, men only wear t-shirts, women wear, what they wear. But when I see tennis outfits on the court, I always compliment them and say, nice, tennis outfit, because that's what you want to see. You want to see that kind of elevation of the sport. If you remember back in the 70s, I say I've been watching tennis for all my life. All the commentators would say, look at all the people wearing tennis clothes. Not one of them plays tennis because of
Right.
Leslie and all those other Feelers and all those sports apparels became very popular for people just wanting to wear the clothes. I'd like to see that with pickleball. How do you think the equipment's going to change, and how do you think the speed of the game is going to change?
Well,
Because I have like
we've already seen the game speed up tremendously. I personally love a soft
oh,
dinking game where when my one power shot comes in, it's the power shot that I make my point on. So I really enjoy getting out there and developing the rhythm of the game and waiting for my moment and ba-boom, putting it
Right.
away. I will say that the equipment, the paddles that are evolving, you can hit more of a power shot. I think that power is becoming more of a game as the median age lowers,
Right.
right? Because
Sure.
when
Becomes
we're young,
faster,
we
stronger.
wanna show our prowess and our power and our sport. And again, another interesting observation about how timeless the game is that there is room for that gentle, soft, strategic game, and there's also room for the power game. So where do I see the game going? I see the game amplifying in all the ways that it is currently existing. And if you want to talk about pickleball attire, I think that what you're going to start to see are a lot of brands really paying more attention to what are the elements we like in our pickleball outfits.
And I think you mentioned one of them, not to interrupt, but you said that there's one brand that you absolutely love.
Oh my goodness, there's a bunch of brands I absolutely love, but I have to say that the one brand that, and I'm going to give this shout out, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of grief from everybody else, but Yola has been doing, that's Yola, Joola.
Sure.
They have been
Absolutely.
doing
Yep.
a remarkable job with their apparel. I mean, the pockets are placed appropriately. Um, the swing of the skirt doesn't interfere. You know, pickleball is a different game than tennis, and while you absolutely can get by quite nicely with a tennis outfit on the pickleball courts, it's nice to see some of these pickleball brands really developing little finesse elements to the apparel that just makes it easier to play a better game of pickleball.
Sure. All right, we have 2 minutes. I'm going to give you a minute, and what I want you to really just mention in this minute, there's one thing I wanted you to talk about, and that is how can communities and clubs support women players, and what advice would you give young female athletes today to get involved? I'm going to give you a
Um,
minute for that.
All right. So, women getting involved in sports. I think that, well, I'm going to tell you a little story actually. My partner and co-founder in the National Women's Pickleball Foundation did not grow up playing organized sports the way that I did. So I grew up in an athletic household. My dad was a soccer coach for my brothers. I played tennis since I was 3 years old, and we were always active in playing team sports. My partner did not grow up playing team sports, but what happened was when her career started to become less consuming and she was looking for activity, she found pickleball. And not only did she find pickleball, but she found friends, she found community, and she found the opportunity to compete. And I love it. You know, every Tuesday when she comes back from her match and I'm waiting for the thumbs up, I won my match, I did my thing. I mean, what more could you want or ask from a sport, right? It's so simple. And I will also say that women in sports are experiencing a phenomenon as well. There is more viewership of women's sports than there has ever been historically. There's more parity in terms of what the purse looks like for women's sports and men's sports on the real high level competition. And I think that women are going to be able to figure out whether they want to be in a co-ed environment or an all women's environment, exactly what it's going to take to make them
Okay.
happy on the
Last
pickleball
time.
court.
Last question. How do they reach the National Women's Pickleball Foundation? What do they have to do? Because they're going to be cut off in about 30 seconds.
Bring it on. NWPF.us. Join the Great American Pickleball Challenge,
They
America
have events,
250,
they have
National Pickleball
charities, right? They
Challenge.
have, you can donate, you can get involved in the
You
National
can
Pickleball League,
volunteer.
Women's
We would
League,
love all
all
of
that.
that.
Catherine,
Thank you.
awesome. Fast, very good.